What's up, everybody? We're back. We're late. Excuse me. I was really sick again. This is the 5th week. Everyone has the flu, right? I haven't had the flu in a long time, but I am like super sick. I mean, it's like, it comes and goes. It's like I feel great. And then all of a sudden it sneaks back up. So anyway, I just feel bad. I keep missing videos, and I'm feeling pretty good today, so it's a video I'd wanted to do yesterday. Someone had requested how I did the spark effect. Specifically the one on her feet, like the actual like grinding effect, not the flashy thing. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It's pretty simple, but again, like a lot of these videos are, let me rephrase that. You know, we want videos for everyone, and so even if it might be simple to us, and who knows, like, you know, even people with advanced or a lot of game dev experience, you know, at least we're all learning, right? It's never a bad question, right? So go ahead and get to it. Listening to this saga, or you also know it as Final Fantasy Legend on Game Boy. This medley, it's super tight. I started a little bit in. I've heard this beginning so much, even though it's my favorite game. Just Saga 2. But check the chat here. Did that post? Oh, I forgot to post that. Alright, I should have wasted. I really thought I posted that, but I guess not. Ooh, I'm all tangled up. There we go. Sound quality was really bad in the last video. I mean, I kind of have a bad habit of mumbling anyway, but hopefully it'll do a little bit better this time. But let's get right to it. Generally what I like to do, I have a new effect in mind. Always sketch. I don't talk about this enough. I should really do a video where I sketch an effect. I'll try and do that too. You know, generally as an artist, and even just as just a person. I mean, I think we're all artists, right? I mean, you may not agree with that, but I believe it. In any case, drawing is often our just strongest skill. Even if you feel like you're not a good drawer, a good drafts person, just doing a sketch, even if it's bad, like my sketches are bad. Like some of them are pretty hot, but like I usually have really messy stuff like go off of. But even those go a long way. And it can just help you kind of get the feeling, because a lot of times if you start like in Engine or with your particle editor or your shader editor, you think too much in terms of like those tools, and you kind of lean into that, which is fine. Like sometimes leaning into like what, you know, the capabilities of something can, you know, there's a beauty to that. Like, you know, like pixel art, for example, you know, styles are born of restrictions and things like that. But start with the sketch. It goes a long way. Unless you're really familiar with how to like do a certain thing, but when you're trying to develop it. So anyway, after that, go to game object, 3D object, or here it is, particle system. Boop, drops it in there. Slide it into the foreground here. First thing you do from there is hit F over here, just like find. I believe that's what it's short for. I right click on the particle system and do create empty, so it has a child, and then I deparent it by sliding it up. I don't know if there's a faster way to do this. This is how I do it. And then I parent that to, you know, parent the particle system to that game object. And I call this whatever I'm going to call it. So we'll just call it grind, spark, VFX, and then prefab. You know, I have a general naming convention, so when I'm just searching in here, because I don't organize stuff very well, you know, let's say it's like grind, spark. I don't have anything yet, because it's not actually an asset yet. Let's say I wanted the material for it, then I would do like matte. And it's like, well, I actually want the actual prefab, and then I would do like prefab. So it's good to just have it in your name, so it's just really easy to find things. No viewers yet, that's all right. So, got this going. What am I trying to say here? This is going to be really specific to this kind of effect. So some of the stuff is going to get glossed over, basically. So again, if you have any questions, if you happen to be in the chat, hopefully you'll notice it. Otherwise, please ask, through Patreon or Twitter. So let's see here. The first step is to sort of decide what emission it's going to be. That's what I do, or the shape, excuse me. I'm going to not necessarily do that right away because I want to show how I do the shape, because I think the shape is what really makes it. Like, all of us know, especially because it's the default, I just use a cone. Let's make sure I'm not lying. Oh my god, I forgot what I called it even. Time to cheat. Just went all that nonsense about naming conventions and I forgot what I called it. Where are you, sister? Dash Spark. So Dash Spark prefab. So let's drop it in there. Just curious about what shape I had. Looks pretty hot, just like that. Dang. It does look pretty good. More credit than I'm giving it. Shape. Oh yeah, so I did edge. So I just did a single point. So I guess it isn't the default. I was a little curious. I couldn't remember if I kept it a cone or not. I think the cone was giving it a bit of an offset, even if I collapsed it down all the way. I'll show you what I mean in a sec. Actually, I should leave that out in case you need to go back again. I didn't miss the good song yet, did I? I kind of started in the middle here. Oh, I did miss it. No, I didn't. No, it's coming right after this one. Oh, it's so hot. God. Saga games have such good music. Whoops. So, back to it. Start with this. I already know I want to use these orbs. It's actually not these exact orbs, so these are the default ones with Unity. The ones we use, for our shader, which is always available through Patreon, or, you don't even have to be a Patreon, it's just that's where it's linked. It's often linked to, or should every time be linked. A link should be provided in every YouTube video as well. And again, I stream these live as an easy way to record. So, any in-time interaction, real-time interaction, is just a little bit of a bonus. It's not necessarily the goal of it. So anyway, let's go ahead and do that. We'll do edge. So normally edge is about having like this right here, and it'll randomly spawn from there. So yeah, again, this is a beginner video, so I'll explain a little bit. Some stuff will be glossed over, but I will. If we touch on it, then I'll explain it a bit. It's sort of a beginner video. Edge emits particles randomly along this edge. And you can additionally randomize the direction. It's just another way to get emission. Writing my own particle stuff, it's tough because I hard coded everything in Aces Wild, so little tweaks that I might want was easy to implement. So even though this stuff is crazy robust, when I tried to implement my own in Unity at first, because I didn't like the one in here, it was just so hard to have this. Yeah, I was trying to implement my own, but I was trying to avoid hard coding. Anyway, it's hard. There's still some things that I wish could be done here. But anyway, it's way better. I understand now why about their limitations, because it is really hard. So the radius here is just, we call it a radius, but it's just a length. So we're actually just going to go down to 1. It's a rate over time. A lot of my effects, I do bursts, but I've also learned to find that there's a really good quality for doing it over time, even if it is more of a burst. But if you do it 0.05 seconds, so it's not all just exactly, not all the particles are just instantly spawning. Couldn't think of the word. And for this grind effect especially, and there's a few ways you could do it. You could just have a really long duration. You could script it to keep this duration going. I actually have it so it's it's pretty short, not super short. It's half a second. It's sped up. Simulation speed's doubled, so it's actually like a quarter of a second. And then I just instantiate a bunch of them. The reason I do that is because I'm not totally done with how I'm handling my particle effects. Right now, I just instantiate new ones. I just do, game object.create or whatever it's called. It's really, really bad for performance. Creates a ton of garbage. It's actually not that bad. I did some optimization. It's bad, though. Don't do it. But it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I did some cleanup the other day in optimization, and actually the particles weren't that bad of a culprit. But it is bad. Creating and destroying objects creates a lot of garbage. So the real implementation would be to have a certain duration, have it set to loop. A lot of the stuff you can just set for script during scripts, with a script during runtime. And so what you'd want to do is just activate it with this. And everything else is automatic. You don't have to turn it on. It's just you can do simple game object dot set active. And then just turn it off when you're ready. And they actually have this built-in script. I don't know if it comes with Unity straight up or if it was on their website. I don't love how theirs works, but it definitely works, so I've just been using that one. You just set a duration, and it'll just destroy itself after a bit. So it's real simple. So, sorry, we're going to be jumping back and forth a bit because, again, beginner tutorial. I want to cover some stuff. So that was a long way of saying it's actually nice to do a rate over time. We will sort of set it to how we had on that other one. So I just set it to half a second, and yet nothing's really changed here. A lot of it depends on the lifetime of each particle. So this is the lifetime of the emitter, the actual particle system. But most of the stuff is just the process, the lifetime, the state of each particle. And that's actually something I wish you could have more control over with the default particle system. You can fix it in scripting as well, but I wish you could do stuff applied to the emitter or based on emitter lifetime, just lower the scale based on emitter time, so that way you can have these effects going on, and then as the emitter's life comes to an end, that sounds so dire, but you could fade out the effect in different ways. You know what I mean? But again, you can do it through scripts, and maybe there's ways you can do it over here. I don't know. But anyway, it has to do with the lifetime. So we set it to 0.5. Then we got this going on. And so, like I mentioned, I wanted to do just one at a time. So what I'm going to do is actually bring that up again, the duration, start lifetime, and bring down the rate over time. So we just got this going on. And again, normally I don't do this. I start with the shape I want, the emission shape. But a big reason why this effect looks so nice is the particle shape. So we're going to cover that first. I think it's a little more interesting. Because the other stuff you can kind of just figure out. It's pretty easy. You just fan out the shape and just make it look nice. But this one's a little more, maybe not as straightforward. Another important thing I'm just remembering is the render mode. So if you're not familiar, Billboard always faces the camera. Actually, I don't even have to do it. I can do it in scene view. It still does it. Always just faces the camera. So let's stretch it out. That's one of the things that we want to do during the start of its lifetime, is to stretch it out. Okay, that'll look cool. And it's oh wait, when I'm looking from here, it's not stretched the way I want. I want it to shoot out and be stretched this way. So Billboard is this real strict screen space, right? So it's always facing the camera. X is always going to be left and right. Y is always going to be up and down. So, you know, if we go like this, you know, Y is still this way. It's always screen space. Doesn't matter. So what you want is stretched billboard. And there's just a length scale you can just set already. It makes it a little bit easier. I don't know. It's there. I used to use it. I try to avoid it now because it can throw off everything. It kind of scales everything. One thing you do need to do, though, is set your pivot. So in your particle, you know, this is up and down in your texture. Let's actually get that going. Where's the one I normally use? Let's see. Spark Matte, like I said, see how fast that was. We'll open this up. Oh my gosh. Normally I have these as working PDFs, but not this time, I guess. Fine. I'll open Photoshop first. Go back in here, drag it into Photoshop. And I'll show you how to create this too. In fact, let's do it now. What I was getting at is that the pivot, like by default, is it's like at the top, I believe. And so what you want to do, it won't make much sense now, but like when you're spawning and when you're scaling things down, it's gonna like pull. So actually I'm gonna leave it. We're still gonna work on our material, but I'm gonna leave this pivot here. And then when we start animating our scale, I'll show you what's wrong, and it'll be obvious. Well, maybe not super obvious, but it'll look kind of bad. And then we'll fix the pivot, and it'll make more sense as to why that's helpful. So, yeah, let's just create a particle real quick. I've done this, you know, almost every video. It's like the same procedure. You can make it however big you like. One way, because it's such a simple particle, you know, we take a soft brush, throw it like right here. You can actually do like a new one. Oh, whoops, I didn't do a new layer. That's what I meant to do. Control-Shift-N for new layer. Wish it was Control-N. Seems weird to me that Control-Shift-N isn't, I don't know, I think they're just used to Control-N being a new... Oh, it isn't it? Oh, wow. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think I made a new one. Because those are uneven, it makes me think that my thing was a little bit too big. The reason I did that is to made a new one is to guarantee that it's like actually in the center. There's ways you can get around that too. But I'm doing a new one because the width and height were different when I made a new one. I copied this new layer after clicking down with my 250. Yeah, 250 is actually probably pretty good. And you might not think that matters too much, but when you like use intensity values, these outlying like super low opacity things will show up super crisp, and if there's not a smooth fade off, then it will not look good. You'll get some bad looking stuff. So again, got some fall off there, so a little bit too big. Do new layer. So this lines up okay. And we'll change it to 512. Actually, I don't have to do it on a new layer, I don't think. I could actually just do, or a new project file. We'll just select the canvas and then hit paste. Generally, what that does is it'll paste to the middle of your selection. So that way is the center. That's the main reason why we're doing all this nonsense. This is a new layer, but we're going to leave this on the background. And I'll show you two different ways. Because this is a simple effect, I control click here. Not here. This just selects the layer itself. Control click here will select the pixel data here based on opacity. Control C copies the layer. Control Shift C copies all visible layers. So we're going to do Control-Shift-C, Control-V, Alt-click here, and now we have that effect. So why we're doing that is so that we can have, you know, a gradient from white to black, but also have a gradient from 100% opacity to 0 opacity. If we wanted, we could duplicate this to make it a little bit thicker. We have an intensity value, so it might not matter too much, but you might find that it helps you. You may duplicate this. It's going to be slightly different. It seems weird. Control-click that first one. Control-Shift-click this one. Control-Shift-C to copy all those. Control-V. You're going to have a little bit more white. Just a little bit different. And then finally, our other method of doing it. Blending options. Outer glow. Normal. Whoops. Wasn't the right thing. Normal. 100% opacity. Make it black. We'll alt-click here. And it'll give us this. It's a little bit different. Those are just different ways of doing it. They can give you... Did I do outer? That's not what I meant. I meant inner glow. Outer glow adds opacity. You can see... And you may want that, so just try that if you like. Inner glow will give you more like what we already did. It might even be identical. I'm sure there's maybe a little bit of difference. So yeah, inner glow. Inner glow does not add opacity. Outer glow does. So anyway, got that. So yeah, we got that. That'll give us our particle. So then, once I have a particle... Dash mat. What I'm going to do is just duplicate that last one we had. I do this anyway. I find it way easier than like doing a new particle, you know. So we'll call it grind spark mat. You know, it's kind of the same thing. Got that going. You know, we already selected our orb. We're going there. Go down in here. You can drag it up, or you can click on this. Sorry, I pointed at the screen. I know you can't see me. We got that going. Let's actually make it something weird so we can work towards something that we want. Right now we got that, and it's kind of just a weird ghost effect. If you've asked things in the chat and it's not showing up, just ask again. Like if I haven't addressed it. Sometimes the chat just doesn't update very well for me. So, first thing is to just get a general sense of like what you want it to look like, right? Probably based on your sketches. Most of my sketches are in black and white, so unless it's something I'm really struggling with and it's like, okay, I need this to look good. I've done this a lot, so I'm going to move my camera because the glow effect, because the particular glow effect I use is, it only really updates during runtime. Or like, what am I trying to say here? That's not true. It's during editor time too. It just doesn't show up in the scene view, but it does show up in the, I thought we were closer than that. Oh, we're way over here. All right, let's drag it over. So now we got that going on. And you can see the glow effect happening too. Go ahead and change that to something weird too, just so we work towards it. So generally like something light in the middle here. Bright rather. And warm. And on the outside. Doesn't have to be those things, it's just what I go for. So basic here is just do yellow in the middle, red on the outside. Now here's where like a lot of more stylistic things are going to come in play. If you want a little more naturalistic, you're going to want more light in here. White, rather. It's going to soften it up. If you want a softer look, like sort of these desaturated looks like you can see in some of my UI stuff over here. I like to drop in a little bit of blue. Go up here. Gives it sort of that pinkish look. I don't know if I actually ended up sticking with it because it seemed a little bit too blue. You know, blue kind of cools it off. But that's the idea, though, is to, you know, you kind of want that coolness. Plus, it just looks cool in like the neat sense, like not just the temperature sense. So, you know, again, that's up to you. And then here, again, you know, full saturation is kind of style I generally go with. I'm trying to like pull away from Mace's Wild, so like adding a little bit of just lightness here can really soften it up. It's going to be up to you. This glow shader is pretty overpowering. So, and that's not a bad thing. You just want to keep that in mind. And it's additive. So if we actually going to turn the start speed down all the way. Let's just do really low. That made it mad. Turn the lifetime up all the way. I think a better way to do this. I don't know why I wouldn't. Let's do 5, 5. Oh, we're still doing it over time. That's what I mean. Just want it to last a bit longer. We'll fix that stuff in a second. I'm gonna zoom back in. Boop, boop, boop. They're so far apart. Where is it? Is it not showing up? Now we confuse. Am I missing something here? Oh, I upped that speed by accident, I think. That's weird. No, maybe that wasn't it. Dude. Okay, I'm getting a bug here, I think. I don't understand what's happening. Did I turn down the opacity or something by accident? Sorry, y'all. I really don't know what happened there. Might be that. It might just be like calculating that weird. So, just gonna do one burst. That's better. That's what I should have done from the beginning. Just trying to get a better angle here. Looking down on it a little bit. Oops, let's do this. No, not that. Like that. And we're going to fix our starting things like that. So you can see as I stretch this out, how it's stretching out like that. This is something I touched on before, but if we like increase our speed, we're going this way. And if we scale down, it looks like it's going the right way. Huh, well, I guess that one works. But you can see how the pivot is like starting up here. You can get a bad look, like, and you may want it more towards the middle, so it sort of shrinks from both sides. We'll get to that here in a second. So anyway, mostly working on finding our like starting color here. And you know, sometimes you maybe don't want it that extreme. You can go like this. Another important thing to remember is that we have this intensity value, right? Let's actually drop that down to 1. You can already see, you know, we have a yellow and an orange here. Still showing up pretty red. A lot of that's because of our emission power here, which we can turn down. See, right now we have just that yellow sort of look. We can turn that up a bit. You can see this is a pretty just straight red. It is straight red, really, really dark. But what that allows us to do is that we can go from yellow to orange to red. And that's really good. And it's additive. Even though it's an additive blend, like we're getting this hue shift, which is really important for just good like color animation. You want to be shifting your hue, not just your brightness. So I was getting at is that even though these are, you know, pretty close together, that's a bad example. That's what I meant to do is like one of these and turn them down a bit. Let's just go from like this red to this yellow just with one slider. You can do it with the glow too, but you may not be working with the glow shader. You know, yeah, you may not have glow implemented. So yeah, we'll stick with this, just so we can move along mostly. Bring it out a little bit. Pretty light up here. Turn that down a bit. You can see as I go red, it kind of loses a lot of contrast and it looks bad. So next step is the shape. Finally get to that. How shape works in the particle, well, one way to do it, the better way to do it, you know, it's the size over lifetime. You want separate axes, for this effect at least. And we're doing it with curves, which is what we want. But it goes from 0 to 1. You can change it, but you're kind of like cheating it. It wants you to do 0 to 1. And I think maybe even newer versions, it might just stick to it. No, I don't think that's true. Anyway, if you do it like to 2 or whatever, what I'm getting at is it's a scale, right? And so it wants you to just think in terms of 0 to 1, which is good. I think it's a good way to consider it. And so what that means is that you need your maximum stuff set up here. I also find it easier to do randomization using the curves as well when you do that. It's one less thing to worry about. But it's nice that you can do it up here, random between 2 constants, if you don't want to deal with the curves, right? So if you do, whoops, like things like that, well, it's not, you know, producing them that much. But those tools are nice because you don't necessarily know what people are going to want. But we're sticking with this because we like curves. So I generally want these to be the same. So considering that, we might just want to do this, just a plain old start size. You can see as I scale it up, it's moving. That's that pivot I talked about. So you may find that this is getting in your way, or you may find that this is helpful. For this effect, I find it helpful because when we scale down, it's going to move forward. That's good because when we're shooting out in different directions, we don't want to pull away from that velocity direction. We kind of want to like flow into it because it can look really bad. You can get like jittery looking effects, or like the particles just sort of stopped in air because they're shrinking down, and so the pivot's getting pulled back. Or, you know, the pixels are getting pulled back based on the pivot, but they're trying to go out in the other direction, and it looks really bad. So chat open. Cool. So we'll scale it up and actually make it pretty huge, especially for illustration purposes. So we got 5 here. Get this kind of nice like halo going on, which is just so dope. It's because of the additive nature of the glow effect and the specific value, like hues that we use down here and their intensity, and it looks so sick. Love it. Because even though it's an orb, like we have like more opacity being created here. Anyway, size over lifetime. Generally, I think of it in terms of y being bigger rather than x being smaller. But we can do this. So as the x goes down, actually I wanted to drag the whole thing. You know, it's going to get skinnier. So this is sort of like our start shape. So an easy way to do it, to create that look, is just to have this and then hit the Y, and over time the Y shrinks in like that. You'll notice we don't have any velocity, no movement. It's all just being animated because of the pivot. Or because of, I mean, it is a pivot, but it's more than that. So, I mean, that's just interesting, I suppose. Let's go ahead and get some movement in there. We're going to start with this. I mentioned that it's not going to totally be like that. I'm actually going to make it so the Y grows a little bit in the the very first, just even like 2 frames. So it's like frame 0 and frame 1. We actually start with the X kind of fat and the Y small, and then it squeezes up into this longer shape, and then as it extends out, it goes back down into that. So that's our general shape. I'll get it up to speed here. So it's more like that. Don't be too worried about getting the exact timing that you want. Almost all of my particle stuff, and even my own like visual effects, I have to just end up scaling it with the simulation speed, like that. Like if we do this, you know what I mean? Got that going on. And again, we're just starting with a single particle because we're going to focus on that shape, so we know. We can see at the end it's maybe a little bit too squashed. You know, we could tell because our X and Y scale are the same because we're not doing that 3D start size, that we should actually try and line these up. If you can see, we have the red down here and we have the Y here. So now at the end, they're going down to the same size. The next step I would personally want in that, I said I was going to get more about the motion first, but let's, I guess it doesn't matter what order we do things, is to actually at that point shrink it down so you can see the Y is like going at a different rate. We may not want that. So let's hit the X. It's kind of a pain. I can't. Just gonna give us a little bit more room there. Oh, that was my problem. I was thinking about it wrong. You'll hear me talk about fast in, slow out. That's what's going on here. So it doesn't necessarily mean a value is going up or down. Fast in, slow out means most of the change happens within the first few frames. So, you know, we go to 0 to 0.5 at the 25% point, you know, because 0 to here is the full length, so about 25% is right here, but we've already gone halfway to our target, which is, you know, 0. And so we want that pace with a lot of our stuff. It just looks nice. That's just a good baseline. Like you'll find your own style and things like that. But that'll help you just get nice snap. It's good snap feel. And it's just good for particles anyway, because it means they have a big impact and then they get out of the way, but they kind of linger a little bit. And so like the scale, you know, animation is still happening, but for most part, you know, it's scaled down a bunch. And so they're a lot smaller, the opacity is down, things like that. I'm going to bring this up because I'm not like loving that shape, so that's a little bit better. So what I'm going to do actually is go back on my word and do 3D start size, because these are so, there's such a big difference between these two. It's hard to edit it. So we're going to do something more like this. X maybe starts at 3, and Y starts at 7 or something. And then when we go back in, we have more room to mess around. So now we can have more like this. So that Y is happening like pretty fast. So I'm actually going to like go like one of these. Oh my god, I'm doing it wrong again. I'm thinking of the wrong value. It's the X is like going too fast. So now my Y is still a little bit bad. So I'm gonna raise that up so it's a little bit longer. And you can see we're still pretty long like throughout there, and so what we're going to need to do, like add a new key here. You can see our motion's a little bit weird too because it's part of that pivot thing we keep going on about. Actually going to show you like what I mean. So you're going to make this 0.5 like you normally would. Got some weird stuff going on there too. Makes me wonder if our orb is like maybe not totally right. I guess I want 0 for the X, which just seems a little bit weird. Huh. But I wanted 0.5 for that. I don't understand that. Don't know why I wanted that. So now we'll add some velocity. It'll be a little bit more interesting. Still wish that was skinnier, so I'm going to bring this down. And you'll see the start speed is kind of like, there's no animation now to the speed, and so it looks kind of weird how it's like popping in, popping out, and then just sort of like gliding out of there. We want a big pop. So we're ramping this up. So already it looks better, even though it's like not the effect we want, it's more in character to the effect that we want. So from there, so what I did was increase the start speed. Then you have limit velocity over lifetime. How this works, it took me forever to understand it, even though it's explained explicitly on the website, is you have a speed limit. That's what speed is. Once that particle is over that limit, you know, ours are going 50, so it's immediate until it goes beneath the speed limit, then it stops being dampened by this much. And it says 1. So its description is controls how much velocity that exceeds the velocity limit should be dampened. A value of 0.5 will dampen the exceeding velocity by 50%. So that means 49 is reduced by 100%, so it brings it down to 1%. And it's weird. What I'm used to is just a strict scaling down, and I wish there was sort of an option for that. By their definition, 0 speed limit, and any value greater than 0 and less than 1 would be that. But it seems wrong. It seems like that's not exactly how it works. But we are going to be doing that. You already see we got much cooler effect going on. I don't know why my scales are... I'm like going to start over on that because it's like surprisingly bad looking. 4, 4. I'm going to reset these by deleting them. You're going to bring that speed up a bit. And then dampen it a bit. We don't want it to stop in its tracks. That looks bad, right? We want it to keep a little bit of motion there. Actually bring the speed down a little bit again. See, technically it should, I don't know, Should not get on that. Again, like, if you can get the motion and pacing that you like, in the end, you can just ramp up the simulation speed, which is what I always end up doing. So we'll start with that. We'll do our length over time. Actually bring us down to maybe halvesies. Add a key here by right-clicking. Fast in, slow out. Not as fast as I was hoping. Click on our Y again, add key. Bring it all the way down too. Don't go all the way to 0. Ideally what we want is that long skinny shape as it's going, and then as it slows down it goes back to that rounded shape. I'm just kind of struggling with it. I do this effect a lot, like not necessarily the spark effect, but like, you know, this like longer look, and then I didn't like that. Oh, I ramped it up a bunch, that's why. I didn't like it. I want it to happen sooner, so we're just going to grab our key until they're about lined up. Pop that back down there. Flatten this out. See, the pacing on that's weird, so it's not fast and slow out anymore. Let's do this. I want it skinnier than that, so I'm going to bring this down. So that's looking better. See what happens when I do this. What happens when I do this. So I changed that a lot. So it's looking okay. Some weird stuff. Any questions at the moment? No. It'll look better once we get all the components. There's that one thing I mentioned where we kind of want it to grow into it, make it, just give it a little bit nicer of a look. So we're going to add a key here, just way in the beginning, and then pull this way down to 0, or close to 0. We're going to do the same thing. The X. Actually, let's maybe could do that now. We don't want the X. You can do it there too, but it can like. So if we go to. So, you know, we're starting fat here. Maybe we want it to be even fatter. What you can do, like I mentioned, is maybe grow a little bit, but I think it would look better if we just started about this fat. And then, oh, it's supposed to be 0. Oh no, we're good, we're good, we're good. Give it a little bit of width. Oh, I guess playback time 0 is always just nothing. Seems a little bit weird. I feel like frame 0 should be something. Maybe it's because we have... No, because we have... Yeah, whatever. So I want this sort of fat look. And then it grows out. That X isn't getting very skinny very fast, so... Do this. It's barely losing any width there, which seems weird. I don't understand that. So we're going to go ahead and grab another key here. It's just the X didn't even look like it was changing. And if it doesn't look like it's changing, even though it is, it's not the look you want, right? So now we have boom. And that stuff happening in the beginning, you want it to be really quick. It's just like a snap. We don't want to like really emphasize that. So already we're getting more of a snap there, which is pretty dope. See? Ooh, yeah, it's pretty hot. All right, cool. We're looking better now. Still, we're like way too just thin and skinny here. What we want to happen is to be, maybe even like right here, to be about even. That's another reason why these are nice to keep the same, but it just like didn't have the editing space. I don't know why it was like that. And we're pretty tiny, so I'm actually gonna bring these up a bit. Because I don't want them to be that tiny all the time. We're going to do some variation so that some of them will be, you know, totally fade out. We're going to fade them out with opacity, but we don't want all our sparks to just be like 0 diameter. That's already a better snap. Again, they're so tiny. What's the dealio? It's giving me anxiety. It's like going good, and then it's like looking like trash. That's okay. Just ramp up the velocity a bit. I wonder if those star values could just be smaller too. Actually, let's do it this way. So I'm going to keep it bigger so you can see it better. You can zoom a bit on this. It looks like trash. The effects looks better though. All right, let's try and just zoom in with their camera. That's better. You can see that shape happening a little bit better too. Actually, if we wanted to snap more, we could do one of these. Do wish it got skinnier faster, so we're gonna do this. Looking pretty good. So next thing I generally do a bit of fade out with the color. You know, I'm using the shader that we, when I say we, you know, during these videos, use. The particle system looks at your vertex color, or it animates the vertex color, and so that's how it works. And so you need a shade to use the built-in stuff. You can do your own stuff. You can do your own scripting on the material if you wanted, which is what I did at first. I don't even know how this is working. And so if you want that, you need to make these colors. You just have to multiply. Basically what I did. You can do whatever you want with it. But this particle system is animating the vertex colors. And so, when we do this for a simple fade out, let's look at the vertex colors. And what we do is just multiply it. In the shader, I mean. That's how you get it to work, is multiply by the vertex colors. Because the particle system is animating the vertex colors. And so if you want your actual colors in the end to change, you have to have those vertex colors be doing something. Like to go like this, throw in like color, maybe even like get a bit cooler like this. It's looking pretty red now, so maybe I won't do that. Try some weird stuff. By doing stuff like this, it's like it's kind of eliminating the color, so it's turning black, and so only the glow is showing up. That's why it's so red. And because of that, I'm actually gonna. I like that redness. I might end up going back, but I'm just gonna kind of tone this down. You may like it, so you can do it however you like. But so now we got that going on. It's a little whack. This X value is just like it's not getting skinny as soon as I want. I don't. But then it's like too skinny. Oh. It's been a pill like this whole time. That's looking better. Alright, cool. Still wouldn't mind a scooter. We're cheating a little because like the Y should really be getting smaller too, but you can't really tell because the glow kind of blurs it all out. Anyway, let's actually get that emission going how we want. So again, it's like bursts can look really nice. You don't really have any. See some cool stuff though with you can't quite see it. You can see like a lot of red coming through. It's like making some pink, and it's giving you some cool like visual artifacts that actually look nice. It's just something to keep in mind when you're like using the intensity values and like the fact that this shader lets you blend, have a separate glow color. It's like a lot of time HDR takes whatever color is there and then smears it around. That's like the general glow effect that you see, like screen space type glow. In games, especially like modern games, when you hear HDR, it's like a lot of times all people mean is it means high dynamic range. I don't know too much about it, but basically your color value is going from 0 to 1, now can go from 0 to 5, so you can store like an intensity of a color too, and then when that intensity ramps up, then you start blurring it out, and it just lets you sort of keep everything all in one sort of package in a way. Oops. Stuff I don't quite like still with this, but we'll touch it up later. Let's just get that shape going. So we're going to get rid of the burst. Well, we'll keep the burst for now, and then randomize. Oh man, it looks hot already, right? So just by doing that, I just ramped up the randomized direction. Already got some cool stuff going on. You can see they're still really long at the end. This is like really ticking me off. I don't know why I can't make this look better. This Y is like, it's getting super low. Why isn't it? Why are you happy? Because a really nice look is for it to go from skinny, long and skinny, to sort of normal. See, like that. And again, we can have some randomness, so maybe not like that as much. Go for like an in-between. It's up to you, you know, it's a stylistic thing. But already that's pretty sick. And so instead of doing the burst, we do like a rate over time. And it's going to get weird because it's really short, and so it's like you're going to ramp up your rate over time. And it's going to seem like a lot, but it's trying to find the words here. But our time's so short, right? So it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, it matters, but it's not going to get too much. And you can always just check, you know, when you're simulating. So how many particles we have at like 15, the max, which is pretty good. I mean, it's really good, honestly. So this is over already, which is making me sad. I think I'd be talking that long. It's taking a long time, sorry. But I think we're dropping some good info. Quickly before it ends. Oh no. Don't do it. Let's see. I had a fallback. I was gonna do, and I forgot it. Let's do. Actually, I thought I had a playlist. This is like the fallback of fallbacks. Oh, way down here. We have that going on. You can see maybe it's like 2 at the base here. Like when it's like really long and skinny, it's giving you kind of like a weird look. And if you pay close attention, even some like really nice games, you'll see that, because it's something you kind of can't avoid unless you do some like really specific, like maybe even like pivot animation, and like it's just not worth it in the end. Because when the overall effect looks good, then it's like, who cares? But we can show you, like, if we do this with like the pivot. So now our pivot's at the top, so it's starting like way back here. If we do the full on one, so now it's like, you know, the pivot is right here. At 0.5, it's right in the middle. So, and then this is our origin point. So even though it's stretched out, or, you know, because it's stretched out, it still goes way back here. So if we want to undo that, we do 1, which is all the way at the bottom. But then you have stuff like this. And so now it's sort of like speckling everywhere, and you're like, what the heck's going on? That's that speed thing I mentioned. Whoops, that's not what I meant. Gonna work for me? What the heck? You're making me crazy. What's the matter? Just got mad at me. I don't know what's happening. Don't know what happened. I seriously don't know what's happening right now. Whoops, hit the playback speed to 0, so of course it's not going to work. So anyway, what's happening is it's going forward. These particles are traveling forward, but we're scaling it down, and so when we scale down, if our pivot's down here, could we even do that? Like, yeah. So we put our pivot here and scale it down. Oh, it won't do it. Like, what if we do this? It's going down, you know what I'm saying? So it's trying to go forward, up, in a sense. But the renderer is pulling it back. So what's happening, and maybe you like the look. I mean, there's something cool about this, right? Although you can see some of them kind of like pull back. that's what we got going on. So maybe our pivot looks a little bit better, like in the start point, but now we got some wackiness going on. And so, like, while it's simulating, it can be handy to maybe just check between those two. Between 0.5 and maybe a bigger value, like something like this. So we're like at 0.6, and that looks okay, but then, you know, it's like how it's fading out at the end here looks kind of weak. So maybe then we'd want to up the start speed and then dampen it again. But again, this scaling is happening at a different rate than your velocity, and so you can just run into some conflicts, unfortunately. Like, it's just something you have to deal with. Maybe someone else has some better stuff for me, but that's why it's generally pretty cool to just keep it at 0.5, or even like these lower ones. If like the velocity motion is really important, you know, the velocity and scaling motion is always, you know, they're all there for a reason, right? They're all important, but I'm just gonna back it up. Oh, this is almost trying to figure it out, right? Still is weird, that fade out. It's just like a little too slow. I wish it was a little harsher. Probably won't be too bad when we like ramp up the speed and stuff, but honestly, like, this is it. It's pretty much the effect. And the main thing is just that it starts skinny. You have, one of the things I forgot to mention, it's really important, is that this stretched billboard, I didn't even tell you what it did. It billboards on the y-axis so that, let me rephrase that, and I might be getting the axis wrong. So you can see these are still billboarding, right? Like, I mean, unless we get really extreme like this, where we're kind of seeing the sides here, because these are quads, right? They're 3D objects, but they're just quads. They're simple. Or on the side here, the y-axis is always going to face us. Yeah, it's the y-axis, because it's the one that it would like rotate around, which is like straight ahead for this. But it faces everything else based on its velocity, its speed, as it calls in the particle system. So that's what's happening here. And you know, really, like, that's it. We can add a little bit of randomness. Start speed. Actually, a better one, speed's good, but start lifetime is really good, because then you get some that are only there for a sec and they really pop. Because when you have a smaller lifetime, you're like getting the same stuff done, but like everything just happens faster. You only have so much life left, so you just gotta get it done. And as you mess with it, like, you know, just bring out this like long lifetime, have some weird stuff going on there. It's just so nice to be able to just like edit it in real time. Let's say you like it this snappy, right? Start lifetime like really low between two low values. 0.9 and 0.5. It's like now it's like it's real snappy, but maybe it's like a little too sparse. And so like we'll amp up our rate over time. You know, have something more like this. This is a little bit closer to like what I have going on. And a good way to optimize is just finding a really good value between those two. And again, you know, you check here to see how many particles we got. We got 30 going on. It's pretty good. Sometimes having when you're, you know, your minimum value for your start lifetime like really low can make it just like real crackly and snappy, and So yeah, I mean, that's just something to consider there. It's depending on what sort of style you like. Sorry, I'm umming a lot, so I'm not really sure what else to say that about, does it? We can add some randomness between here. These can get really weird. I don't know why these are really giving me such a trouble. I still feel like they do, or are. But you can do random between two curves. And already we got some like randomness in over there. So like by default, we got some cool stuff going on, right? It's a little more chaotic. It's a little less of a cohesive sort of statement, if you will. So one thing you might want to do is line these up more. You know, add a key here, add a key here, and make them line up a little bit more. But maybe you like that like chaoticness. So you can see these are getting skinny is because we fixed the Y value, right? So the Y values are staying long, but the X values can be 0, and so that can make them just like really thin. So again, you just go back here and line them up if you want. But if you like that chaos, then just leave it. Like, you like it. If it looks good to you, it looks good. Something a little bit like that. And it might not matter too much. And you may find once you add some randomness that you're like, maybe I should like go the other way too and do something like this. So now we have like a more roundedness. Maybe you really like that. So let's like bring down the Y a bit. Like everything's too long. Like let's keep it a little more like that, you know? That's kind of cool. We get some, you know, as it gets really skinny, the glow fades out more. And so we get some like sharpness and softness. Like that's kind of cool. It has its own character that, you know, I didn't necessarily expect like going in. But there you have it. You know, there's no real, I mean, when I instantiate, I just parent it to the character. I hope to actually implement something where, you know, I have it set for certain effects. Let's see, attacks. So you can see I like pop it in real quick, like on our feet. And I want to get it going on both feet. But I want is like a full implementation where basically just turn it on and maybe even check some velocities on the feet. We'll see. But basically, so they're always on the feet. Always, like, what am I trying to say here? Always instantiated on the feet. But I just turn them on and off based on like certain conditions. When I jump, it kind of lingers a little bit, which is just a nice little bonus. It took a long time, and I don't mean like weeks or anything, but you know, a good long sit, maybe like another hour or so, tweaking it to just make it be that really specific shape I want. Like if we see here, like the pacing's a little bit different on mine. They go out real fast and then get real small and round and then just hang out there. This one, you know, is a little bit different. They kind of keep going afterward. Mine stop, come to a stop. That's an effect that I wanted. And I, you know, kind of prefer that. But, you know, in other effects, I like it when they keep going a little bit. Like, even when they're all the way faded out, like, they're still traveling a little bit. So that's kind of the effect you want. I think it looks a little bit hotter for this effect that they come to a stop like that. There's a built-in effect in Unity particle system called inherent velocity. I used to think this only worked if you're using like their velocity stuff, because whenever I tried it, it wasn't working. But I didn't realize, and maybe there's a way to get around it, a lot of my effects were using burst. And so I just don't know that it works too well doing that. Maybe if I put in a delay, it would have worked. But when I do emission over time, this works. And so you'll notice, it might be hard to see. You can see it with this jump effect too, like these dust clouds. It's real subtle with the dust clouds, like because they're following her anyway, but they actually flow forward a little bit, or they flow in whatever direction she's going. Like they would anyway, you know, follow her, because like she's moving forward, so it's going to leave a trail behind her, so it's going to make that shape anyway. But I also have it on the sparks, and if you really wanted to get really extreme with it, you would like on my particle effect, I have it so they're coming out at an angle behind her. But if you really wanted, you make it so they go straight up and then do inherent velocity. And like no matter what direction she's going, they're going to like spray out behind her. And so I kind of have that. But if you notice, if you pull back a bit, they start to go up. And it just adds like a... I want to say little, and it is little, but it looks so good. Like, you kidding me? It's just really nice. You know, they pull back a bit. And there's like a scale value. And you can do it opposite. You know, I found that like on some effects, because she's jumping like this, I ended up making it so it actually inherits her normal velocity. But you can do it so it like is like the opposite velocity. It can just give you some nice punch and like can help you create the shape of the particle better, because you can get some weird stuff once you start like doing it based on velocity and like, you know, actors moving. It may not be the nicest of a shape that you want. You know, that's why I do these like, you know, slash, oh man, those are some bad attacks to pick. Slash effects, because they retain like a nice circular shape, right? Because when you use weapon trails and characters are like moving around, it's not really a nice shape. You can make it so it is. You can do some tricks. You can make your animations just super tight. And then also do some tricks. You know, again, I bring up Soul Calibur a lot. They do a good job of it. But you can get some weird shapes when you're doing it based on stuff. Because, you know, these aren't necessarily very fluid motions. You got some weird jerks and sudden changes of velocity and things like that. Anyway, just something to keep in mind. Hopefully that does it. You know, again, the main thing, fast in, slow out. That's the same thing we do with our speed here. You know, we have this really high start speed, and then we dampen it really quickly. We start skinny to emphasize that like shootout shape, and then we squish back down to a circle. We didn't do a great job of getting back down to a circle. Again, these values were making me mad, but you know, like I mentioned not too long ago, was that it took me a long time to get that shape that I liked. So yeah, there's that. If you have any questions, please let me know. Again, support has been incredible, you guys. Thank you all so much, for you folks. This video will be available on YouTube, and you can access at patreon.com/culture attack. If you have any tutorials that you'd like to see, just any concepts you'd like covered, any questions about previous vids or anything, please let me know. I generally don't make like full-on prefabs available on the site. I'm not averse to it. I just don't. I mean, I know a lot of this is done in Unity, but I just kind of wanted to keep it more universal. If you ever want that, let me know. Almost everything I have is open source. If you want to see a character model, I know I've asked people in the past before, and I understand. I don't want to put anybody on blast. It's like, can I see your character model? I want to know how you did it, especially when I was beginning. They're like, I'll send you some screenshots, so I'm not going to send that to you. And I'm like, that kind of made me sad, you know? Because, like, being really just able to just, like, have your hands on it is the best. So that's a big philosophy here. Open source, open assets. I mean, not open assets, but open for educational use. Code, techniques, things like that are free for you to use. I would prefer if you gave credit, but you don't have to really. You know, it's knowledge. It's a big part of this is free knowledge. The assets are there, though, to see how I did it, getting a good idea of it, even mess with it, just so you have a better understanding, like doing your own works. Another thank you just for the support. Like, honestly, it's been crazy. Y'all are amazing, and thank you so much. That'll do it for this week's video. Might do a visual effect. Might do some animation. I don't know. I had a couple ideas. There's so much more to cover with visual effects. I might try and find an effect that I don't know how to do. Might do some UI stuff. I did some new UI stuff that like ended up looking pretty good. It's some basic stuff, but you can see like my UI animating a little bit. I mean, this is like Super Nintendo level stuff. Like, it's really old, but just some ways to. Why it's cool is that they're simple, but they can look really nice. So anyway, thank you all so much again. Hopefully not forgetting anything, because I forgot some stuff last time. Hopefully the sound quality is better. Please let me know about that stuff too. But messed with the levels a bit. Hopefully improved it. Tried to speak more clearly. Longest goodbye ever. It's finally over. Thank you so much. Take care.